Hey everyone, welcome to LimitLess Radiocast, episode 81. Hanging out with James Foster today. We have some great conversation about some backgrounds, competition, how all things have changed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as we know it today. Also, James gets into a little bit of his other hobbies, so sit back, relax, throw those headphones on, and enjoy the show. We'd also like to thank all our friends who help and support Chad and I do this show each and every week. Magic City Brewing Company located in Akron, Ohio. LimitLess Tape, M&H Beans, Gateway Dental Care, Lashley Nutrition, Supplements and Supplies, Thomas Webb from DeHoff Realtors, Lanky Fight Gear, Red Tail Tattoo Company, Candry Law LLC, and last but not least, James Klingerman's BJJ Foundation. Check them out for amazing BJJ techniques, help, and instructionals. Hey everybody, welcome into the show. Hope everybody out there is doing well, taking care of yourself. And also, hey, we missed a week last week, so I hope everyone had an awesome Thanksgiving and got some time to sit back, relax, and enjoy, get some R&R, have some good family time. And so today we're hanging out with the awesome James Foster. He is the owner and lead instructor from Foster Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Kent, Washington. He is also a fourth degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as well as competed many, many times at the highest level. So James, thanks so much, man, for hanging out with Chad and I. We appreciate it very much.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's definitely an honor and something we've been trying to make happen. I appreciate you guys being flexible and doing it on a Friday for me.
Yeah,
sure.
One of my few days off. So, but, anybody that runs a jiu-jitsu school knows there's no days off. Like, you're always running something business side, putting out fires here and there, managing the academy. Sure. But I love it. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. So.
How long have you had your academy, James?
I was going to say Kent, Washington. Nobody knows where Kent is unless they're from here. we just say Seattle area. And then people know. Yeah, you say Seattle, then people will know where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My academy is about 20 minutes south of Seattle, so not too far from there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're not too far at all. Yeah. It's like
it's kind of how we are, at Canton, Ohio. We're like, we're right by the Football Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
So, we're like 15 minutes from it.
Right.
So to answer your question, I've been running my academy. I started teaching full time back in, right around 2003. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Nice.
I actually started teaching as a purple belt, and it was totally unplanned, not something I had a plan to go into teaching jiu-jitsu or any of that. It just kind of happened. Jiu-jitsu here in Washington State was very, very small, and it was always to where there'd only be one academy open at a time, and it would stay open for a year or two and then go under.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And most of the time that was because a lot of the Brazilian instructors would come in, and it was kind of like a revolving door. Something would happen. They'd have a visa issue, get sent back to Brazil, or they would, oddly enough, when you talk about the money difference between here and Brazil, like especially, back then the money they were making here, huge compared to what they could be making in Brazil. But there always seemed to come to be an argument with the owner over wanting more money. So I can't tell you how many schools I was part of that went under because of that, unfortunately. And so it'd be like you kind of trained where there was an academy open. You didn't have the opportunity like you do nowadays to stay under one lineage. You trained if you wanted to train. You trained at the school that was open. So one of the upsides of that was getting to see a lot of different types of instruction, learn from a lot of different styles of jiu-jitsu. And it got to a point where kind of one of the only academies, I was already driving 3 hours round trip to train. So I was going hour and a half each way to be able to train. And I did that like 4 or 5 days a week. And it got to a point where they relocated that academy even farther away.
Oh, man.
And that was when I was a purple belt. So I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. I can't, I love you guys, but I can't do more than a 3-hour round trip. Like I was
Right.
working two
Yeah.
jobs, working two jobs at the time, everything else on top of that. So, which I look back and I have no clue how I did that.
It's always amazing to hear like so many guys who have started, early on and stuff when jiu-jitsu started growing and it became, a spot like where people were starting to recognize what it was as a martial art here in the States. So many guys though drove so long, like so many guys that we have talked to and gals that we have talked to. It's like, yeah, it was nothing for me to drive an hour to train and then an hour home, an hour and a half to train.
Yeah, that would be great. An hour compared to an hour and a half.
Right.
Awesome.
That's wild to me, which I give so much credit to you guys that did it, because you learned and you're able to pass that torch forward, give it on to other people. Obviously your students and your academy is a big deal, but it's just like, I think of all of you guys who have done that, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't have, I maybe it would be, but I'm naive to it because I consider myself part of the family of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. No, you for sure are.
No, but you're right. It wouldn't be what it is.
No.
There's no way.
At all.
Not
Those of us that were crazy enough to do that and stick around.
Yeah.
And that's not even talking the style, the way jiu-jitsu was back then was very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every class was, the kind of the mentality from the professors was like, if you don't want to be a high level competitor, why are you doing this?
Yeah,
like every class was like training for worlds. Every role you were supposed to go 100%, kill each other, kill or be killed, and crazy warm-ups with hour of calisthenics and everything else and all of that. Every class was like a comp training session. And so those of us who survived that, that were crazy enough to stick around, it's kind of where we are today, right? So I'll never forget this conversation I had with one of my old professors. He would do these classes where we used to do 2-hour classes. So the whole first hour was conditioning, and then it'd be a tiny bit of technique drilling, and then the rest of the class was sparring, and like that intense sparring where you just dreaded it because you knew you were going to be dead by the end of the class. And I remember he came up to me and he was really frustrated because he didn't understand why the trial students weren't signing up, because he would conduct the class that way. It didn't matter who was there, brand new guy, never done anything. That's how this is, right? So it was kind of that sink or swim mentality. And I explained to him, I'm like, hey, these people have the next day. Like, they're not trying to be a world champion. They're wanting to have a fun, get in shape, have camaraderie, have a kind of a family type of group, positive outlet and all of. He's like, James, I don't understand why they never sign up. Maybe, till warm up, those people are there, and once you get them in, then put it back to normal.
Sure. And that's another evolution that has happened too with BJJ in terms of, I hear stories from like James, you're saying now, and like what Chad has talked about, and like getting killed every day, to where it's like, no wonder no one came back. Now it's all about, that's the first and foremost, like we take care of our students, like, because we want them to come back.
Like nowadays, so there's two things I find very funny nowadays, coming from the background that I've had and experiencing that type of training. One, leg locks, very popular.
Sure.
Cool, love leg locks, but I was doing them when I was a white belt back in the 90s. Like, that wasn't, my instructor heel hooked me when I was a white belt. I had no clue what a heel hook was. He thought I was being stubborn and not tapping, and he popped my knee.
Oh, man.
He got popped because I thought it was an ankle. I have very flexible ankle. And he's sitting here doing this, looking at me. And I'm like, oh, my ankle doesn't hurt. And then all of a sudden, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were being. I'm like, no, I didn't know what you were doing. Like, that was my introduction to a heel hook, right? Was getting my meniscus torn.
Oh,
so
man.
very, very, very different times. Very different times. And the other one for me is the whole gi and no gi debate. Like, I think you should do everything. I think it's all good. Anything
Sure.
good from either. You should be well rounded. You should be training in both. But like, there wasn't even a name for it back then. There was no
Yeah.
term no gi. Back in the early 90s when I was training, we would do those 2-hour crazy classes. Our gis would be soaked with sweat. So we're like, well, we want to train for another hour after class. We're going to roll some more. We'd take our gi tops off, and that was no gi. Because
Yeah.
we just wanted to train more, and our gis were soaked, and we were overheated. And then we roll for like another hour, without the gi.
Sure.
And
That's awesome. I've never heard it.
It didn't make it like it didn't make it this. There was no giant disconnect in our brains. Like, jiu-jitsu was jiu-jitsu. It's just
Yeah.
Sure.
you didn't have the same grips anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Do you? I'm assuming you guys train both at your
yeah,
academy.
we do everything. Yeah. We're mainly, I would say, if you had to paint us as something, we'd be considered a gi academy just because we have more gi classes, but
Sure.
we do also have no gi. And something I take pride in, I believe the style of jiu-jitsu I teach, it's not overly reliant on having to have gi grips. So the transition from doing gi with me and the techniques I show, it's not this huge change. Like, you could do most of the stuff I show in the gi, in no gi. So, and that's the beautiful part about no gi, is that anything you can do in no gi, you can do with the gi on. So, for me, I think it's important for people to understand there's not this huge disconnect. Like,
Right.
little things change. Your collar grip changes to a single collar tie. Your sleeve grips turn into your different types of wrist control. It's not this huge thing. I think a little bit of that was, due to kind of marketing and when Eddie beat Hoyler, that was like, oh, okay, we're a no-gi school, and then you start getting these cool names for things, which was brilliant because it helps people remember. And Eddie's awesome. Like, he's developed so much
Sure.
of the jiu-jitsu world. And but I think that's when people started building that little disconnect in their brains, and kind of marketing wise, it made it gi versus no gi, which is better, and all these different things that we kind of, the little debates we kind of hear.
And I think the more you do both, it's not that, unless you're like a huge spider guard guy, I guess, and that's all you do, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah. And you can even do a version of spider guard in no-gi. It's little things change. I think we lost Chad.
We did, Chad. He might still be there. Maybe he hit something and bumped his video off.
Big brother heard us talking.
Right. About gi and no gi.
They thought we were disparaging no gi. So
right. I don't. In Chad and I've had these conversations before too. I don't think it's going to ever go away. Like, no. I know Gordon's like, oh, gi's gonna go away, and I don't think he really thinks that.
Gordon's trolling.
Yeah.
Gordon likes doing both.
Yes. That's for sure.
He can make more money in no gi right now.
Sure.
And, so why wouldn't he want to paint it in that light?
Right.
Like, obviously, he's the greatest to ever do it in
sure.
no-gi. And everybody, I'm not going to be shocked, but there are going to be people who become shocked when he puts the gi on more and then starts winning all the no-gi stuff. Or all the
gi stuff.
Puts
right.
The gi on all the gi stuff. Like, it's going to come as no surprise to me, because I know he's rolled with very high level people with the gi on and done just fine.
Sure.
So again, it's this whole, like, there's no disconnect. Jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu.
Right. And it's that new age, and we've talked about it, like social media and all that stuff, like where where it has evolved in terms of like.
Yeah. Again, it's brilliant marketing.
Right.
It's brilliant marketing. And Gordon, in particular, has been very smart in his approach of building this character. He took the Conor McGregor blueprint and kind of converted it to BJJ and grappling.
Yep.
And it's worked very well for him. Anybody who actually knows that guy or has been around him in a capacity outside, like promoting a match, they're like, oh, he's not. Like, even Danaher I'm in interviews like, that's all an act, guys. Like, for some reason,
Sure.
he's a shy guy. He's not like that at all, but he's used that, whether we agree with it or not, to really build something for professional grapplers to be able to actually make a living in.
Yeah. Which I love that part of it, because I think, be loving the sport and loving what we do, and as a whole, it needs to be built for people to make money out of it. You know what I mean? Like 100%. There needs to be,
Yeah, and there's different ways to do that, right? Like
for
his
sure.
formula worked for him, but that doesn't mean that there's MMA fighters who are just as popular and do just as well that don't play the heel, right?
Sure.
I think going the heel route is probably a quicker path to that.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And getting to that level of, but that's not for everybody. That's not something I would do. That's
right. Exactly. It's not for everybody, for sure.
Yeah.
I remember when my professor, Jiva Santana, he's known as the arm collector. So in MMA, he had I think it was 13 first round finishes by armbar in his MMA career.
Oh, wow.
And he fought on Bellator and different events and things before he retired. But I'll never forget hearing this story about when he tried out for the Ultimate Fighter. When he tried out for the Ultimate Fighter, he made it passed with flying colors, all the different tests they put them through, the striking, the grappling, all of that. And he made it to the final series of interviews. And back then, Rampage Jackson was doing jiu-jitsu with my professor.
Okay.
At this training center called No Limits that used to be down there in Orange County. Giant, mega, 10,000 square foot facility back before that was even a thing. And so he would work with Rampage on jiu-jitsu. So when Rampage heard that Jiva made the final series of interviews, and having been in that world, Jiva's a very laid back, very monotone, calm, super sweet guy, only does jiu-jitsu, doesn't have any hobbies outside of jiu-jitsu, doesn't party, nothing. And Rampage told him, he says, Jiva, if you want to get on the show, when you go to that final interview, when they ask you what you like to do for fun, you have to tell them you like to drink, do drugs, party hard, all of this stuff, because it's reality TV.
Yeah.
They're wanting the Chris Liebens who feed in the person's bed and all that drama, and they're feeding the people alcohol to make for more exciting TV. It's very scripted. A lot of people don't know, but so when they asked Jiva that question, oh.
No response to it. Right.
That's about it. So needless to say, he didn't make it onto the show.
He didn't make it.
It always sucks too, because you're like, I get it from a business perspective and what they want viewers and they need to be in those spots, but you're like, dang it, I want to watch a show that doesn't have that, a reality TV. Maybe that's probably why I don't like reality TV all that well either.
Yeah, you and me both. It doesn't resonate with me, but I understand the formula.
Correct. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, understand the building blocks.
It's all about the numbers. It's all about the engagement.
Yeah,
for sure.
All of
and it's really not. It's not reality TV really anymore, is it? It's like you said, a lot scripted.
It hasn't been for a long time. There was even I think one of the people who was part of the original cast of The Real World, the first season or first two seasons, wrote a book and just talked about. It was very scripted.
The
producer's telling them, "Oh, I heard so and so talking badly about you. They said this, and to go over and fight with them. Did you say that?" And totally feeding them things, feeding them alcohol, really pushing. Hey, don't you want to drink? Because
putting fuel on that fire, man.
They needed to stoke the fire, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy.
Yeah, but it worked.
But it works. And I mean, People have made millions of dollars off of doing it, and still to this day, it's still that same thing. But
yeah,
it's like, I
guess it all depends on what you want to do to achieve that level of status or fame or money,
right.
you know,
Right.
what you're willing to sacrifice or be part of. And, you know, ultimately you just have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, and your peers and your family and all of that. So for me personally, I wouldn't be involved. I couldn't do it, but
right.
for somebody else, it's the way, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you, James, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to I'd be like, I wouldn't be able to look anybody in the face. My
but
friend
we
would be like, what do you
understand it, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, it's
sure.
not like we're making disparaging comments about people who do choose to go that route. It's just not for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's just not for us, for sure. Yeah. Because to each their own. Like I want people to succeed. Like I want them to find their outlet, to do the best that they possibly can. Same thing with like jiu-jitsu. Like when I see certain things and certain people, and I'm like, man, I want them to succeed. My own teammates, obviously, and then other people. I always want people to succeed at this, especially because now that I know, being in it, how hard it is. Like, and just how difficult. People don't realize how difficult it is until you do it.
And ultimately whatever's best for the overall growth of grappling and jiu-jitsu, and, you know, growing the community, but not sacrificing the special things about the community, like the positive aspects. Like anything in life, there's going to be bad individuals involved in our world.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
You can't have a massive group of people doing something to where you're not going to have some people in there that maybe aren't the best of people. But jiu-jitsu in particular, I think the community at large does a pretty good job of filtering and you know, removing those types of individuals. I know myself as an academy leader, that's a constant priority for me, is managing the atmosphere of my academy, making sure that the academy remains I call it a sanctuary. I want it to be a sanctuary for all people.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't care, as long as you're treating each other well, you're being a good person. Like I don't care your religion, ethnicity, sexual preference,
right? Politics, all that.
None of that matters. That, you know, there's no place for that in the academy, as far as I'm concerned. When we put the uniform on, we're all the same, or we put our no-gi gear on, we're all the same. We're all part of the same family. So I work very hard to maintain that.
Yeah, same here. That environment and atmosphere is number one. Before jiu-jitsu, you know, that's
the hardest part about running a school.
Yeah,
is if you truly care and you truly want to maintain that, it's constant work.
It is, and in today's world with like with social media, you know, I've seen my student. You can't monitor everybody outside of the gym, right? You can't. But sometimes I'm like, hey, man, think before you post something 100%. On how it's gonna come across and what you represent.
Especially during the pandemic, like that was difficult because you know, things were very divided, and I'd see something and I'm like, hey, you got to remember, there's people who you're friends with at the academy who feel very differently in that regard. Like, when we do get back to training with one another, do you really want to have that impression in their mind about you as a person? Like, was that worth it to like vent and get that out? Or, you know,
and those kind of impressions, they don't go away. You know what I mean? Like you can't, once it's there.
I had people literally like, hey, I'm never going to train with that person again when I come back. And I'm like, oh, wait, you know, maybe we should have a discussion before we get to that point. Like actually talk to each other face to face. And, you know, maybe they were in a bad place when they said those things or whatever. But anytime during election season, that's when you got to be careful on there. People, like, I remember one time this student said something, and I was just like, I'm a night owl, so I caught it. He like posted it at 2 a.m, and I think he was drunk. And the thing he said, I'm like, bro, like, you need to delete that unless you want a real problem, because that's crossing a line. Like, and then I get long message the next day. coach, I was drunk. I don't actually think that way. Like something got me fired up. And I'm like, well, you have to remember you're a representative of the academy outside of the academy too.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference if one of your teammates sees that, or somebody from another school, and like they're thinking we have people there that are hateful or feel a certain way, even if that may not be the case. That's not a good look.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So that's the honestly the hardest, that and promotion. Those are the two biggest banes of my existence.
You'd be great. Just eliminate those two things, right?
We can't.
Really I know that.
Go back to the old way. The old way was the white belt got so dirty it was eventually black, and that showed. But now everybody, we're washing our belts to prevent staph and stuff, so we can't do that.
Can't do that.
I can't go back to that. But promotions are hard.
It is. It's tough.
In my opinion, you never have somebody who, no matter how much they are introspective and trying to analyze their own personal growth, unless somebody sees that visual representation on their belt or reflected in the color of their belt, they can't make that connection that, oh, I'm doing good or I'm improving. And so promotions are a very difficult thing because you always have that couple of people who can't be happy for the other person, or are comparing, or are sad that they didn't also get promoted.
Sure.
It's just this constant struggle with that.
Yeah, it's tough and we've all been there, even, and trying to explain to people, how we came up. Like you said, it was a whole different time, right? And
I was a blue belt for like 5 years.
Yeah, I was a brown belt for 6.
Yeah, so I mean, I think my wife has the record. My wife was a purple belt for like 12 years.
Yeah.
So, but my wife, and when you're significant other, you're very much, it's a different dynamic, and she, for a long period of time, wasn't able to train as much as she wanted to, and just it took a little fork in the road where it took longer for her.
Sure. And
that's what everybody needs to realize, though. It's all part of it's an individual journey.
It is, for sure.
Yeah. But, your perception is reality. So I always have this thing I explain when I kind of catch wind of somebody who has been like, well, why'd so-and-so get promoted? We started at the same time.
Right.
And I should be, thinking it's a level playing field. In their mind, that person is there on the 2 days a week that they also train because they see that person there when they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In reality, I'm seeing that person do 3 a days, 4 to 5 days a week.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm like, you're comparing to somebody, you're doing 2 classes a week. They're over here doing over a dozen classes a week.
Yeah.
Yet in your mind, they're only there when you're there, and you guys should be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. This just kind of popped in my head, and I haven't ever talked about this definitely on the show. So this will be really good, James. Cool. Is there an age disparity in the process of thinking like that, in terms of like younger folks that come in and train in BJJ kind of want to be promoted quicker versus maybe an older middle-aged person coming in? Just out of curiosity, do you and Chad, I've never asked this to you.
I hadn't really thought about it. I do feel like the people who get into it later in life don't have the same level of expectation.
Sure.
I think people who are younger that maybe are having these aspirations of winning a certain title at a certain belt level, or they want to get to black belt so they can open an academy and have more legitimacy when they open their academy. Those people maybe are in a little more of a hurry, and maybe you get those feelings a little more. So that's a good observation. I do think that probably does play a little bit of a factor in it, the age.
Yeah, I would say me, as far as promoting is, I'm not going to compare, Terry got his blue belt. What are you, Terry, 44?
45.
45.
But
I'm not going to compare him to the 22-year-old
Right.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't. So I think age comes into a play more for me as an instructor. And it does as we get, I just turned 47 this year. So,
yeah,
you can't compare yourself to the 32-year-old purple belt or whatever it is, I think it gets harder for the older guy to realize, hey, I can't do that anymore. I have to roll a little differently now.
The best, the old adage of comparison being the thief of joy is really applicable when it comes to promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a big thing. But at the end of the day, it's all just part of what we do.
Sure. Yeah.
And I understand it. Like, I remember being excited to want to, be a certain belt. Like, especially when you're stuck at blue belt for 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and you're getting a different instructor every so many months, and then they basically want to start you over. And like, even though you've been a blue belt multiple years, it's like, well, I have to see if you fit my standard. And it's like, so I get it. I never had the, like, to me, the way we came up, like, if you asked anything to do with if you were maybe going to be promoted soon, or
not
hey,
good.
coach, what do I need to do to be ready? Like, that was a surefire way to wait another couple of years.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what. And there's a really famous professor here in Washington, very high level black belt he was under Carlson Gracie Sr. And he had won everything in Brazil at brown belt. He was even running Master Carlson's academy for a period of time as a brown belt in Brazil. And he was a brown belt for like several years and won every title you could win, went and won worlds, went up to Master Carlson Sr. and said, Professor, like, I won worlds. Now I'm ready for my black belt, right? And Carlson looked at him and said, you talk too much, and turned and walked away. And he said it was another like 2 years before he was promoted to his black belt.
Man.
So that's kind of the old school mentality.
Sure.
So today's much more relaxed. Like, if a student asks me what they need to work on, whatever, like, that's not a huge deal to me. I get it. I get it. And there are places you can go if you're more rank focused, where you can get it X amount of time, but in your classes, you're gonna get it every so many classes. You'll get a stripe so there's a place for those people too. If I'm too old school or whatever, I completely understand.
Yeah. I saw an article the other day. I didn't get to read it all, where that guy sued his professor for not ranking him or something. Did you see that?
Really?
I saw the article, but I didn't even look at it.
I didn't either. I just kind of went by it.
Is anybody with that mentality, we're better off not having them in jiu-jitsu?
I was going to say, like, we don't want you.
Quit. And he's probably somebody that would have quit after he got his blue belt anyway, or whatever rank he was hoping to get. So.
Right. Like, yeah. And I think, and I'm sure most people, like, I know when I started, I didn't know what the belt process was. I just wanted to do some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think most people that come in the doors, Terry, you probably didn't. I mean, you had a little bit of martial arts and you knew about belts, but.
Right. But I wasn't like, fortunately, and that's what prompted me to ask this discussion on the age disparity, because I started late in life in BJJ. So for me, it was like, when I went to do it, I told my wife, hey, I'm going to go do this. She's like, go ahead. She knows my passion with martial arts and everything. And so it was like, I want to see who I am. That's really why I started doing it. Like, I wanted to go see what I could do or whatever, like, be involved. And then I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people more than I did the art, because of what we talked about earlier in the show. Like, I could go to a place, my sanctuary, where everyone cares about you, but it didn't matter where anybody ever came from. And that's all I wanted. And it was like, I can never do this outside of this place. Like, I can't function this way. Like, I can't, everything matters to people outside, but in here, it's like, it didn't matter. So then learning to roll and stuff like that, like getting into it, and that I just didn't care about belts and whatever. Am I proud to be a blue belt?
You didn't have an expectation coming in of reaching a certain level by a certain point. Like, I think sometimes it does. There might be a correlation from people who came from a traditional martial arts background if they trained it in a more modern academy in other styles like karate and taekwondo and stuff, where they are receiving the rank quicker too.
Yep.
It's a big like bucket of cold water in the face when it's like, oh, like there's especially if you don't do like testing or anything, and they're used to coming from like being graded or tested every so many months, or like I know the old karate school I was with, it was like they would do the big testing ceremony and everybody tested, everybody got their belts or their ranks at the end and all. So if you come from that, like I could see like this jiu-jitsu thing being very vague and very weird as to, well, how do I get that? Like, how do I get to that point?
Sure.
Yeah. When I tell you you're ready, right?
Right.
That's the best. Yeah. You got Terry doesn't give himself enough credit too, James. He had 9 classes in when the pandemic hit and still came back.
Goodness.
Yeah.
So
it was
we
9
had some
and
people
closed
like
down.
that too who had just started.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, and like him, a lot of them came back right after, or right when, when they were comfortable or when we were able to fully, feel comfortable fully reopening and all of that type of stuff with all the different factors we were dealing with. Got to commend him on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that'd have been the easiest time to not come back, And
he was probably just scratching at the wall.
I was.
Like, man, now I'm addicted.
I was.
Now I'm addicted. Now what do I do?
It was 9 classes, and then boom, this hit, and then we were shut down. Then when we came back, we did line drills for a while because we just
did solo drills.
We weren't touching.
We did that for a period of time. We had that. We had solo with people doing drills or working on dummies and all that type of stuff. Like multiple different layers of it.
Yep.
And the people that started during that time or started right before the pandemic and then came back, like that speaks volumes about those individuals and their dedication to jiu-jitsu for sure.
Yep.
That's why when I got my blue belt, people were like, "Oh, you can quit now." I was like, "Sorry." It's like I already went through that process right when I started.
A lot of people quit at blue.
That's crazy, isn't
it? It is wild to me too, thinking that people do.
When you think about it though, like, I mean, there are martial arts where you can get your black belt in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
In the US. So really the equivalent, I mean, if it takes you 2 or 3 years to get your blue, you're at the stage where it's like a lot of people would be at that high level or feel like they're at that high level in another style. So it's like, man, this is just the first one.
Yeah.
That's a big, wake up call for some people. Like, oh, or they really focus on that goal of the blue belt because it is the first color change. And then it's like, okay, now I'm here. Now what?
Yeah.
I always tell people, the goal should be an overall mastery of all things grappling. That should be the goal versus a belt. But that's not easy for people to have that mentality. And it's not something that's ever possible to achieve. If you have that mentality, you'll never quit, barring a major physical disaster or whatever.
Sure.
But it's hard for a lot of people to develop that mentality, especially for something that for most people is just a hobby.
Yeah.
So I mentally tried to put that in perspective when more people, I know the jokes and all that, like, oh, blue belt out, peace, like I'm never showing up again, all that. So that was my thing.
Purple belts know everything, and
and they don't train or they don't warm up.
Warm up.
But I was like, that mentality has to be evolved into what we are today into BJJ. There's a lot more hobbyists and a lot more people doing it for other reasons, which is great. Listen, everyone out there listening to the show, we say it all the time. And I know Chad and James would both agree with me, like, still do it, go do it, get into a good academy, find a great academy.
My thing is too, some is better than none.
Yes.
So if somebody trains for 6 months with me and quit, man, they're probably going to have some tools that could potentially save their butt if something bad happens to them. So for me, I'm like, that's great. Like, man, I would love that you did it the rest of your life, but if I was able to give you something that improved your life in even the smallest of ways, my job has been accomplished. So you can't hold on to that, like, feel like you're failing if somebody quits, because people are going to find ways to quit. Things are going to come up in life, like all these different things. Like, if you're doing your best as an instructor to cultivate and to provide great instruction, and you're doing everything you can, and then you're still having that natural ebb and flow of people quitting, as long as you're imparting your wisdom to them and giving them quality they can take, whether it's a life principle that they, figure out connects between what they do in jiu-jitsu and areas of their life they can use it into positive benefit, or it's a physical skill, a health improvement, a technical skill that saves them in a street altercation, whatever. Like, even if they did a little training and took something like that away, that's a win.
Yeah,
it's a full win. Yeah,
for sure.
We had a work Christmas party last night, and guys always ask me, like, they'll whatever. I wear a jacket or whatever that has.
Do they go, hi-ya?
No, they don't. They know now.
Yeah.
But they're always like, I think I might do that. And I was like, look, just, you don't have to like go all in. You can just start a little bit at a time if you're like worried about it. And I said, you know, this and that and whatever. And then they'll get, well, why do you like to fight? And I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. I was like, honestly, it had nothing to do with that at all. I was like, now yeah, no problem now. Sure.
Yeah.
but that wasn't the thing. I was like, you have no idea like I can't explain it to you because you're not doing it. I just encourage them to do it.
Got to experience it, right?
Yeah. Like, it might
definitely
not be for you.
Something special. I mean, coming from a martial arts background, like, jiu-jitsu is very unique, very special. It was one of those things where, like you were saying, Chad, like, we took away good things from our traditional martial arts training and everything.
For sure.
But jiu-jitsu doesn't have all the answers, but it's fairly complete. And does provide so many great benefits both on and off the mat. Checks a lot of boxes.
It does.
And the sense of community too. The sense of community is huge. Like,
the community, and I feel like more than any other martial art, you get out what you put in. I mean, you truly,
Yeah, you get out what you put in, and also it's one of the few that you can practice full power.
Go. Yeah.
And you know what it feels like to have as close to an actual altercation minus strikes, unless you're like, we have Jits with Hits class where we incorporate striking with the grappling, so people know like how certain technical aspects, certain moves change when somebody can hit you. But aside from that, like my wife says, she has confidence because she knows what it feels like to grapple with a big guy who outpowers her, and she can hold her own and do well. So there isn't this underlying fear or wonder of what that might feel like if somebody were to have an altercation with you out on the street or whatever. There's a level of confidence because you've done it hundreds of times. If you've been training for a long time, you've done it thousands of times, full pace rolls. The beautiful part about jiu-jitsu is you just tap and move on. You can practice. Yep. You can practice at 100% relatively safe and know what that's like. I remember when I was doing the karate, we had to use focus and pull our punches and kicks this far from the person. And I always had in the back of my mind, from a self-defense perspective, I'm like, man, I know how muscle, like, even if I intend to follow through, I'm not going to completely follow through if I hit somebody out on the street, because I've conditioned my body to stop short so many thousands of times.
Sure, right.
So you don't have jiu-jitsu. You can actually feel what it's like, and that's why I encourage people to at least try one competition. I don't require that people compete, but I encourage them to try a competition, because a competition not only will show you certain technical aspects and physical things you need to work on, but it shows how your brain is going to react under that level of stress. when your fight or flight kicks in and you do think that you're in a real fight. Now, if that's even a little bit off when you do a tournament in a controlled setting with a referee and your friends there, it's going to be tenfold out there.
When it's real, when it's like
in a real world, some creep tries to attack you.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's something a tournament can tell you, like, okay, that's something I need to work. Because here I'm safe. I have the referee. I have my friends got my back. But out there, you're not going to have that. So if you have any trepidation as far as that, like a tournament can show you what you need to work on in that regard as well.
Yeah, for sure. I did a little bit of competitions back in the day. I haven't competed since I was a purple belt. But what I always tell people, like, obviously I want my jiu-jitsu to work on every rank, right? Every person. So I'm 6 foot, 150 pounds. So I'm not a very big guy. I always gauge
you're a lanky guy.
A little bit.
A little bit. 150.
Yeah. So I like to say, like, I gauge my jiu-jitsu on the new 200-pound white belt that comes in. Cause that's going to be the closest thing to a fight. Obviously we went with some white belts and it's, you know, so that's how I like to gauge my jiu-jitsu anymore, you know?
That's great. Yeah.
And I've never, knock on wood, I've never been in a fight in my life. And I hope
I'm knocking on wood right now. Yeah. thankfully I've been able to avoid and not put myself in situations that have a high potentiality for an altercation. I always give and that's something I took away from my traditional martial arts training, because the coach there, he always talked about, you know, situational awareness and not putting yourself, like, he used to use the analogy, the odds are higher if you went to a 7-Eleven in, you know, Oakland, California at 2 a.m.
Right.
You're increasing your odds that something sketchy might happen to you. Like, you can make the decision to not do that.
Yeah.
Or like the one I use a lot of times for my students is like, I won't go watch the UFC like at a bar.
Yeah.
I know there's people get the alcohol and then start messing around. Especially if they see somebody like big like me and they have that liquid courage, like they might want to test a little bit more. So I'm not a huge fan of going out and watching the fights, because it's like, even if you go to the UFC, same thing.
Yeah.
In the crowd all the time, like constantly. And you're knowingly putting yourself in situations where there's a higher likelihood that something may happen. So I feel a big part of it is knowing how to avoid those situations.
Absolutely. And you read my mind, because that's where I went with my traditional background. I feel that little bit of confidence that I had, the way you carry yourself. And knowing where to be and not to be and leave a situation if you need to. You know, we were all younger, going out to clubs and bars and stuff. And thank goodness, you know, I was never in a situation, but I think it's because I took myself out of it if I needed to.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to go, guys. It's, you know,
exactly.
whatever.
The voice of reason.
I was always trying to be the voice of reason. Yeah. And I was that was before jiu-jitsu, and I was skinnier and lankier then.
Right.
Believe it or not.
Well, I haven't been skinny or lanky since I was like 16. So. But I think I'm sure being an imposing figure made people question whether to try to start things
for sure.
in general. Is helpful. But also there's that element, a lot of times the smaller people with the liquid courage
are the ones
that they seek out the bigger,
for sure,
more imposing looking person. So
right.
It doesn't always hold true.
Did you play any sports, James, when you're young?
No, always martial arts.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah.
So I was homeschooled. A lot of people don't know that. I'm so well socially adjusted. A lot of people think homeschool, like they end up these recluse, like can't talk to people, shy. There are those out there, but my parents, they weren't the crazy homeschooling type of parents. They made sure I was involved in social activities and got out of the house and all of that. But other than martial arts, I used to like to play like street basketball. Just for fun. Play with the neighbors or go play.
Sure.
Until my knees started bugging me. I'm 6'5", so and I'm heavy. So basketball, jumping and landing.
Yeah, it's not good on the feet, the knees, not good on the whole
leg.
leg.
Knees can only take so much of that. So there's a reason most basketball players have knee problems, especially the bigger guys. But for me, no sports. Begged my parents to let me get into karate after, around the time of the Karate Kid and all of that. And coming up on like Saturday martial arts cinema type of movies.
Kung Fu theater.
Kung Fu theater, baby.
Kung Fu theater. Yes. Always wanted to get into martial arts. And after the Karate Kid came out and they saw that, and it was kind of an anti-bullying message, even though I like how they turned it around. Like he was kind of the bully.
Right. Yeah.
Johnny was kind of, but they let me get into karate. So I did karate from 10 until 18.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
I got my black belt in 6 years in that. And I ended up getting my first degree on my black belt in that style of karate just prior to switching over to BJJ.
Very cool.
Nice.
So I officially switched to BJJ in 1996, but had been dabbling in it since the first UFC.
Okay.
Me and some of the other karate black belts who had seen the UFC, we were trying to reverse engineer
what's going on.
So we watched the videos and then we try to practice it. We try to figure out how he did the Ezekiel and how he was doing the armbar. And so we spent about 3 years dabbling. And back then there wasn't a lot of jiu-jitsu seminars or anything.
Sure.
There was a couple. I think there was a guy named Bert Richardson that was like
he was a TKD guy, wasn't he, guy?
Yeah, a TKD guy, but he also he incorporated some grappling.
Or JKD, I mean.
JKD. Yeah, he's a Jeet Kune Do guy.
Yeah.
So, and their motto was always like using stuff from other styles. So I remember going to one of his seminars way back, like in 93 or 94, because we knew there was going to be some grappling stuff, and we went to that. And other than that, it was just getting together a couple times a week and trying to extrapolate, trying to reverse engineer.
Crazy.
So officially didn't start BJJ till 96, but around 93 started practicing. But learned more in the first week of actual BJJ training than in the 3 years of doing that.
That's awesome.
I actually did enter a grappling tournament prior to that while I was still in karate, and ended up winning, but it was just nobody knew what they were doing.
Right.
I had one judo throw I could hit, and I could get the armbar from mount. So I did that to both the guys in my division. But yeah, it's funny. I wish I know I have that on a VHS tape somewhere. So I might have to convert that and upload it to YouTube, because
that'd be pretty cool.
I'm in my thin karate gi with my karate black belt. And doing
That's awesome.
It was actually these Wing Chun guys put on a quote unquote jiu-jitsu tournament.
Sure.
Oh man!
But nobody knew what they were doing. They didn't know how the points worked or any of that. So that was pretty funny. The
Good
old
times,
days.
man. I was gonna say the old days.
Yeah.
Did that kind of project you to always want to compete?
No, to be honest with you, so due to the mentality of the coaches back in the day, like competition wasn't something I enjoyed back then.
Okay.
Competition was very much something where if you were one of the better guys on the team, you were basically expected to compete anytime there was a competition.
Okay.
And which cool, but when it's like, I'm counting on you, James.
Sure.
Right.
You have to uphold the honor of the academy. You're my best guy. You need to go in and win.
You're like, great.
Man, that can do some things to your head, because what's the first thing comes to your mind is like, well, what if I don't do good? I'm letting down the whole school and my coach and my team.
Right.
So it put it in a negative light for me. It was funny, even when we would do like in school tournaments, but just because it had the tournament title on it, like people I would destroy in day-to-day training, those guys would beat me when we did an in-school tournament. Because my mental would break down.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And then when we would go and do the bigger tournaments, like against other teams, it's like, well, you're going to let the school down if you lose. So you're focusing on losing and not wanting to lose.
Sure.
Well,
versus
like
winning.
It's like the guy who's going to kick the game-winning field goal that's repeating to himself, I don't want to miss.
Right.
Like, right. You're going to miss.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to miss. Yeah.
So for me, competition wasn't fun until I have a great mentor. He was actually who I did my first BJJ class. It's funny because a lot of people think I'm from Texas because that's where my first BJJ class ever was.
Oh,
so
okay.
How that occurred, so I've always been in Washington State, but back during that time when I was dabbling with the Jiu-Jitsu and karate, my dad would go to get phone system certifications. My dad used to, before he was retired, would work on the computers that would run telephone systems.
Oh, nice.
Back in the day. And so he would have to go get these certifications and upgrade and learn how to use the different systems and all of that. So he had a training down in Texas to do that. And so he went there and he saw a school that had a neon Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu sign in the window. And he went in and talked to the guy. And the guy's my close friend and mentor. His name's Alan Moeller. So he runs Moeller Jiu-Jitsu in Dallas, Texas. He has 2 amazing schools down there. Just a super good guy. And so the next time my dad was going to go and do another certification there, he's like, hey, I'll take you with me. You can do jiu-jitsu the week while I'm there. While I'm at the school, you go do jiu-jitsu classes. So I did that, and I bought a gi from him, and that was my first jiu-jitsu gi. And I have a picture of me with a horrible bowl haircut, and I'm like in my white belt, my jiu-jitsu gi. And that was just like, man, an eye-opener, getting to train at an actual formal jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah.
Realized how little I knew and just that it was the path I wanted to go on.
That's awesome. Like, to say like how little you knew, but how much you can learn.
Oh, 100%.
You know, like it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It really let me know it was something I wanted to explore further. Unfortunately, back in those days within the traditional martial arts community, jiu-jitsu had it was a big threat, especially with the UFC showing how effective it was against different styles.
Yeah.
And us, the black belts who were dabbling, when we were doing stand-up karate sparring with these guys who'd been black belts for 20 years, we would hit a double leg, take them down, and choke them. So they started getting really upset and saying, well, that would never work if I could do my throat strike or whatever. Like, well, do your throat strike next time.
Yeah.
And do the same. We double leg them, take them down, choke them. So some of them thought it was really cool and asked could we show them some stuff? But the majority was like, oh, that jiu-jitsu, that wouldn't work if I could actually do full contact or whatever. So when I came back from Texas, another thing I liked at the karate school was when you became a black belt, you actually had to start learning how to teach. And you would have to help, like sit in on a class, help instruct a class after you became a black belt, which is cool because I got to start how to instruct back then. So when I came back, and the motto of the karate school was, if it works, we use it. So it was more like Jeet Kune Do, even though they called it karate, because we would do judo throws. Mm-hmm. We were doing kicks from karate and taekwondo. We were doing a little stuff from kung fu. And the motto, literally the copywritten catchphrase was, if it works, we use it. So when I came back from having that experience in Texas, and I was like, hey, I found a school here in Washington. There's one place. There's a Brazilian black belt there. I will pay to go learn jiu-jitsu, and then we can share it here. Like I'll teach some stuff in my classes that I learned over there. And I'll never forget the head guy, the owner at the time. He looked at me and he said, James, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff is a fad, just like Kung Fu was in the 70s. He goes, that stuff's going to be gone in like 2 years. You'll never hear anything about it.
Man.
And he goes, so you can go and learn that, but if you want to go learn that, you can't train here anymore. So you need to decide. He says, you need to decide. You either go do that or you stay here with us. And I was like heartbroken and baffled, because I'm like, but if it works, we use it. Like, what is this divide? So I thought about it for about a week, and then I wrote, as a 17 going on 18-year-old kid, I wrote this heartfelt letter, like how I was being forced to make this decision, and like essentially being forced to leave my family who I'd been with for, almost 8 years and all of this, and basically my resignation letter, and that I was going to go on this other path and learn jiu-jitsu, and the rest is history. I've been doing it ever since.
Man.
Wow. Well, you picked the right path, even though it was very difficult at the time, but
And going back to what we talked about at the beginning, so I kind of took a long-winded route. So how I started teaching as a purple belt, after that school moved even farther away to where it wasn't feasible to get there, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had nowhere to train. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like toiling, like, what do I do? Like, maybe I can meet some people in their garages and get together and train now and again, whatever. Well, kind of serendipitously, the new owner of that karate school I used to be with reached out. And he said, hey, James, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Rick. I now own the karate school. I was another one of your fellow black belts there. And he goes, we got some guys here locally getting into some MMA. And he's like, they do great as long as the fight's standing. But as soon as they get taken down, they're getting choked out. They're getting arm bars. And he's like, could you come and give back to your old family here and maybe show us a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, maybe like teach a little informal class to these guys that are going to be fighting. So I'm like, sure, I'd be happy to give back. Well, that turned into a little informal thing for just their MMA guys, to it kind of snowballing into an actual class. And then it snowballing to where people were asking how much it cost to do the jiu-jitsu class. Nice. And then they let me start charging a small, I think I was charging like $35 a month or something. I threw out a number, $35, and started to teach. And then that grew into them allowing me to use a whole side of their bigger location. So I had two 20 by 20 wrestling mats that I bought, and did that for about 3 years, and then opened up my own location, and started awesome. the journey of having my own spot. But I'm always going to be thankful to the karate school, because that allowed me to build up my student base with relatively low overhead. And then when I actually opened my own spot, it just blew up. Nice. After that. I had the foundation, and then so 2007 was when I got my own actual space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I had a little tiny space. We outgrew it in the first year. We were on a 3-year lease.
Wow.
I'm like, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do now? Right.
I had to add so many classes a day to spread things out, make the 3-year lease last. And then in 2010, we moved into the spot we're in still to this day, which is a very big spot.
Nice.
And been there ever since.
That's awesome. I love and you built that foundation. You know what I mean? Like so many, I mean, not in jiu-jitsu, but just in life, which we talked earlier in the show, how jiu-jitsu is so off the mat. Like it helps you build, like, I'm not trying to get my ceiling right away. I need this foundation first. It helps in business and schools and younger, all that, everything that you're going to do in your life. Jiu-jitsu helps tremendously with that mindset. If you get there, not everybody does. And I understand that.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. And it was such a, Like I was a purple belt when I very first started going there and helping those guys. And then I reconnected with one of my old instructors and became officially under him for several years. And so he eventually promoted me to my brown belt prior to me going over and then my black belt. So I was only a brown belt for like a year, just because he knew I'd been held at blue and purple for so long.
Right.
So I got my brown, and then like a year later I got my brown in like 2004, and then a year later in 2005, he promoted me to my black belt down when I was visiting him down in California.
Very cool.
But
did you know?
No. Well, no, let's see. That one, no, I think I did know because he had me bring some of my students with me.
Oh, okay.
To witness it. So yeah, I was pretty sure something was going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah. And then he did it in conjunction with my current professor, Jiva, who wasn't my official professor at the time.
Oh, cool.
So
that's cool.
They weren't, they had to do it combined.
Okay.
They got permission to promote me. They were both, but I think back then they were following the tradition that they needed to be like second degree or third degree to promote to promote me to black belt. So
yeah,
2 whatever degrees were able to do it together. They got permission from the federation and did that. And then I ended up I've been under Jiva pretty much ever since then. But yeah, as far as competing, the majority of my competition to where my friend Alan Moeller, he told me I would always call him when I would compete and I tell him how things went, and they never went great just because of that mental and the pressure of the instructor. And he said, he calls me Big James, and he has a southern drawl, which I'm not going to be able to mimic, but he's like, Big James, he says, you don't sound like you enjoy competing very much. And I said, well, Coach, I always call him Coach. I said, Coach, I really don't. Like, I feel a lot of pressure. And he says, well, you need to not compete if you don't enjoy it. And he says that you need to do it for you.
Yeah.
So he goes, if you ever decide to compete again, it should be because you want to do it for you and because it sounds like a fun challenge for you. And he's like, until you do that, you're not going to have a good experience with it. So I took his advice and I waited until I thought it sounded like something I would want to do, a fun challenge. So that was after I became a black belt. So 2006, 2007, I did the Pan American Championship. I ended up taking bronze both years. And then I was just kind of hit and miss, but mass majority of my competition's been at black belt.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until 2015 that I won my first world championship. And then I won it 2018, 2019. So I did back-to-back years. So those are my biggest competition accomplishments.
Sure.
It took a long time to get there, and the big factor was getting control of that mental game.
For sure, yeah.
Which is hard. People underestimate that. They
no, it's 90% or more.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And you can always tell people that, and you can always have competitors, and you tell them they have to do the mental study, but they'll always do the hard work and the physical stuff.
Right.
Like you tell them to read a book for 5 minutes, you think you're telling them to pull their teeth out. Right. But they'll come in there and grind for 2 hours straight, do crazy training. I'm like, no, this is what's going to separate you from everybody else. This is what put me over the top and led to those world titles. Like, you have to do this work. I know it's boring, but this is what's going to take you to that next level. Like, you want to be good, keep doing what you're doing. You want to try to reach that level of being great or accomplishing a big world title. You have to take that extra step and do that extra work.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so vital for people to understand that the mindset, as you said, James, it's 90% of everything that you do in your life. So studying and learning is so critical and vital for you to grow as a person in anything you're doing, and definitely BJJ. I mean, it's like, yeah, read a book, man, or like go study something that's going to put you in a better
now
mindset.
there's like even less excuses because, oh, I don't like to read. Okay, listen to an audiobook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or there's podcasts about mental stuff too that'll give you tools you can apply right away.
Yep.
For sure.
So yeah, that was the big one for me, as far as one, doing it because it sounded fun for me. It sounded like a fun challenge. And two, overcoming those mental hurdles was the big, I kind of stumbled upon that, the mental stuff. Like, I kind of just did an experiment, because in 2013 I took silver, and I almost captured a world title, but I lost in the finals. But for that tournament, I was having all my normal like feelings of anxiety and stuff the night before, not being able to sleep, focusing on the wrong things. Like, I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. Oh, I'll be fine unless I get my guard passed, or I'll be, whatever our little devil on our shoulders telling us.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there in the hotel the night before, and I'm like, I don't like how this feels. Like, I hate how this feels. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose the way I'm feeling right now. Like, I'm feeling like I do anytime that I lose. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to lose, what's it going to hurt to try something different?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I was like, you don't have these thoughts before you go and train, before you go roll with people at the academy.
Right.
You don't do any different routine before you roll at the academy. You do your normal warm up, and you don't listen to heavy metal and get yourself all amped up before you roll at the academy. Like,
sure.
Why are you doing all these things at the tournament and making this a different experience? Like, if you're wanting to emulate the best version of yourself that exists at the academy when you roll, why are you doing this different? Why are you making this different? It's a different setting, and it's different opponents, different individuals you're rolling with. So I made a conscious attempt to just approach it the same way I would if I was going to go roll at the academy that day. And then I ended up beating a bunch of guys I have no right to ever beat on my way to the finals, with stacks of world titles in their resume. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this, because this felt much better. And I was present-minded when I was out there.
I love that approach.
And then I just took that further and started doing more research, more study on the mental side of things, and was able to put together a few successful world title runs.
Say a few. You're very good.
Yeah. No, it's funny because when you win that, when I won the first one, it's so surreal. Like, it doesn't even feel real.
Sure.
And it's like lightning in a bottle. And then you get this feeling like, well, I'm never going to be able to do that again. Like, all the stars have to align. Like, then the second time, it's like, well, maybe there's something to this formula I've put together
that you built.
I've been able to recreate.
Right.
Because I lost in 2016, 2017. I think maybe 2016 I didn't compete, but I can't remember. But I lost, after winning that initial world title, couldn't recreate it, but then was able to get things back together and kind of come up with a little system that works for me. And my system isn't going to work for everybody.
Right.
All of you have to find your own way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely in competition, in competing in anything, honestly. But definitely high level grappling is different. Everyone that listens to the show, like you all grapple most likely, but grappling is different.
Yeah.
It's very, very a physical aspect of everything.
Way different.
Are you gonna keep competing? You got some competitions or anything, James?
I love to compete. I learned a long time ago that if you're going to be an academy owner, you need to prioritize your students in your academy. One of the things I've learned in how to properly prepare if I'm going to try to go in and win a big title I have to be a little bit selfish, and that always takes away from the student.
From the students, sure.
So I don't do it as often. Like I'll hit one big tournament a year a lot of times.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do like a fight to win and a tournament or something like that. I'm 1-1 on fight to win, so I've only done a couple. But yeah, it's something I would like to do again, especially now I've taken some time away from it, obviously because of the pandemic.
Sure.
Right.
And then the state of the academy after the pandemic, it's been ever since just rebuilding.
Good.
Now everything's even to a peak beyond where it was prior to the pandemic.
That's good.
And I feel more comfortable, like next year I'll be able to take that a little period of time to be selfish for a month and go and do something.
Sure.
So I do plan on going and doing Master Worlds next year
awesome.
in Vegas.
Oh, cool.
That's
Very
my
cool,
plan. Man. Yeah.
That's so
yeah.
cool.
And if something else comes up that sounds fun, I'll do that too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But my priority is always my students and my academy. So
right.
anything
And
extra is frosting on the cake.
Right. And I always tell like coaches and Chad, like great coaches that I consider great is the ones who put their students in what they're giving because they want to give. You want to give everything you learned to your students and you want them to be great. And Chad tells us that all the time.
And I'm always, people get too wrapped up in titles and belts and all these things. Like I always tell people, like, that's not what you're going to be remembered for.
Yeah.
You're going to be remembered for the positive effects you had in people's lives, whether that be through teaching jiu-jitsu or whatever it is that you do. Like for me, nobody's going to be at my funeral or my celebration of life or whatever.
Sure.
And go, hey, remember the time he won this? No, they're like, hey, coach helped me pull myself out of being suicidal.
Yeah.
Or, this helped me, or he was there for me when this happened, or he showed me this or that, and I took it and applied it to other areas of my life. Like that's the legacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your identity can't be the titles. Like most people's medals, like a lot of the competitors I know, they're sitting in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, and you're only as good, like in people's eyes, you're only as great as your most recent accomplishment.
Yeah.
So it's like, unless I won worlds this year, you won some other things a while back. Like it's never going to carry more weight for anybody but yourself.
Right.
It is a cool accomplishment. It feels good and it's a resume piece, but your students, your friends, like it's way beyond that. You can't be, your identity can't be your medals or your titles. You have so much more of a capacity to have a positive impact beyond that.
Yeah. And how crazy is it the way we came up in traditional martial arts? I remember walking into the first karate studio and trophies and stuff everywhere. And I don't even I'm sure, if we have a guy go win a world title, I'm going to put it up in the gym.
Oh yeah.
But we don't even, we don't even hang up like Naga stuff. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
It's not even about that. And I was so real quick because I know Terry's got to go soon here.
Man, Terry, we're having so much fun.
Oh,
I know.
I was like, do I have to go soon? But I'm taking my oldest son to see a movie and taking him to dinner for his birthday. He'll be 15.
What are you taking him to see?
We're gonna go see Violent Night because he loves Christmas.
My wife wants to see that.
But
we're gonna see that.
Nice, good. Go ahead, Chad. Go ahead. Because I want to ask James about his shirt, and I want to know about this art thing because I love art, man. So.
All right.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, so the guy that started the gym I'm at, he passed away a few years ago, stage 4 cancer, right?
Oh man.
And awesome guy, did a lot for me and everything. And he was a huge karate guy back in the day, competed, won a lot of stuff. He was getting ready to move to South Carolina at the time. And I went to help him move some stuff. He's like, oh, hey, we got to go to the gym and throw these boxes in the dumpster. Right. And he pulled out all of his old karate trophies and just dumped them in the dumpster. He's like, these things don't mean anything.
Don't mean anything,
they're nothing. Just
if
throw
anything,
them away.
They spark maybe a cool memory.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's not what it's about.
No, but as a young,
I wish I could get that through to like some of my students that really like to compete or really like putting a lot of weight on winning a world title. It's like, no, you're so much more than that.
So
like
much.
The impact, the effect you can have is so much greater than that.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself. Like, just don't do it. Don't limit yourself to those kind of things, because you just do nothing but you end up pigeonholing yourself into that area. Yeah. So it's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to derail the whole thing. Yes, I'm just.
This is Optimus Prime arm barring Megatron.
Oh, nice.
So, and it's backwards because of the camera.
Yeah.
So this is actually, I'm sponsored. I'm very proud to have been a long time sponsored person of Show You Roll. So this is like best of both worlds. My favorite cartoon growing up. This is an actual official collaboration that Show You Roll did with them. So it has the little, cool. You probably can't see it, but
I see it now. The Show You Roll's little symbol at the end there.
Little symbols down here. Yeah, so that's cool.
If you guys haven't seen James's gi collection, just Google it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Right. I'm trying to get rid of a bunch of it. So if any of your, and I say get rid of in the best way, I'm trying to thin out my collection. At one point, it was over 300 gis.
Wow.
And it's the only argument my wife and I ever have. It's derived from my gi collection.
Yeah.
Now I have a comic book collection that rivals that.
I was going to say,
we just pulled out my whole collection, and I think she counted 21 of the big long boxes and 4 of the short boxes. And random stacks about the house that need to be organized. But
what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I don't. I have so many. I follow artists a lot because I've always been into art. So I collect, a lot of my collection is derived by art, and these are all like art books. Like nice. How to draw books, figure drawing, comic book art. Like there's like probably 1,000 books over here.
Nice.
So aside from the gi collection, the comic book, and you see Grogu back there, like there's this guy's over here. This is like a replica,
nice,
like the actual replica off the one from the show.
Yeah.
which they did a phenomenal job with that too.
So I'm a big nerd, both literally, figuratively, all the things. I'm big, I'm nerdy. But the artwork, that's something that's a skill that I'm trying to continue to build and never let go of the dream of maybe doing some stuff. I'm good friends with some pro, comic book artists. A lot of people don't know that there's a really famous Marvel comic book artist. His name's Ron Garney. He's actually over there on the East Coast. He's over in Connecticut. And he's drawn for Marvel and DC and been with them for like over 30 years. He actually is currently doing Keanu Reeves' comic book called Berserk.
Berserk. Yeah, I know exactly what that
Ron
is. Yeah.
draws that, but a lot of people don't know Ron's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He actually just got his first degree.
No way.
Yeah, so it's hilarious. Awesome. Like, I walked into teach at a charity seminar for autism charity seminar, Black Belts for Butterflies in Connecticut. And my good friend Rich McKeegan brought me in, and I walk in and I recognize Ron Garney, and I'm like, I went up to him like, "You're Ron Garney, like you're one of my favorite comic book artists," and he's like, "Oh, you're James Foster. I'm a big fan of your jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow!"
And then we hit it off. So like he's my mentor, kind of my art instructor in a way.
Sure, yeah.
I've been drawing since I was a kid, but he's really helping me hone in. So I'll just show a couple. I just have
I'd love to see it, definitely.
So let's see here if I can reach. So that's like a sketch cover I'm working on.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah. But see, I look at it and see all the flaws. So,
well, it's because you're in it now. It's like doing jiu-jitsu,
right?
You know, it's
so,
that same
and then,
thing.
These are like figure studies and things.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, very cool.
Camera might have trouble picking those up.
Yeah, I can see it. That's cool.
It's really it's really cool.
Yeah, just like a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of stages to artwork. So when you draw something, you're not going in and doing the finished looking drawing first. You're doing a very rough underlying sketch, and then it's kind of like sculpting. You have this very rough form, and then you're whittling away and refining and defining, and then and rendering and all of this stuff.
It's a process.
Like to get it to the finished point. Yeah.
Right.
So when people see the final art, they think like the person's going in there and very carefully just getting in and doing it perfectly out the gate. It's like, it's messy like that first before it ever gets to the point of looking like a finished drawing.
Right. 100%. That's awesome, man. I love that you have that passion for it. It just same as BJJ. Obviously, I always love to see like the side hobbies that outside of what we love to do, like doing that. That's great.
It's kind of my only physical hobby.
Sure.
So the other thing I got into during the pandemic, and it helped my mental health a lot, was arm wrestling.
Sure.
So I got into arm wrestling, and kind of a weird way, heard about it on YouTube, and then started following this guy named Devin Larratt, who's the current heavyweight world champion. He just won the heavyweight world title, and he's the second most famous arm wrestler. And I became connected with him through Instagram, and we started talking. Turns out he has a martial arts background and all of this. And
very cool.
Long story short, probably during the pandemic early on, when him and I were talking, I told him, once this pandemic thing settles down, I want to bring you to my academy to teach an arm wrestling seminar. And fast forward to present times, and we just did that a few months ago.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome. So
I flew him and his son out. His son actually does jiu-jitsu, and made the dream come true, and got to have basically the Michael Jordan of arm wrestling come out to my school.
Yeah, that's very cool. Which we've talked about that in BJJ, like doing this podcast. Like for me, it's a blessing, a huge honor, like to get to talk to you. Like we get to talk to the Michael Jordans of our sport type deal. Like that's how I look at it. Cause I'm like, I wouldn't have these opportunities. Like I can go to seminars and see these guys and say, hey, how you doing? Like I'm so-and-so or whatever. And
the cool part about jiu-jitsu though, is that everybody's really accessible. Like you can talk to people that you really, that are bigger figures in the sport, and they're more accessible than Hollywood celebrity or something. For us, these are our Hollywood celebrities,
right? Yeah.
But we actually can bring them to our school, or go up to them at a tournament and have a good positive interaction. I think that's another thing that's special about jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, it's something that I would have never known, obviously, until start doing it. And then when you're in, you're like, what? It's like a whole new world. Like, what happened? Like, where's this been my whole life?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's too cool.
You said, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Optimus Prime is your favorite. So I just happened to catch the new trailer for Transformers Rise of the Beast last night. I haven't seen it yet.
I saw that the trailer was out, but I haven't watched it yet. What do you think? What are your impressions?
I'm excited.
Are they trying to do like the Beast Wars Transformers?
That's exactly stuff? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I was concerned when I first saw it until I don't want to give it. I'm not giving anything away. Just go watch it.
Yeah, but I'm going to watch the trailer. So
Optimus is in it, and I was like, "Oh, thank you," because I was concerned, and I know there was talks, and I follow comicbook.com. I follow,
Oh,
so I
nice.
read all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff on there, and they do a great podcast, and they do all kinds of interview people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was concerned just hearing stuff like they weren't going to bring back a lot of like traditional Transformers, and I'm like, I don't know if I like this.
Exactly.
But I'll definitely, obviously, it's a theater
I've
watch.
seen all the live action ones they've done. I've enjoyed in their own way. My wife laughs at me. Like she loves comic book movies and stuff, but I don't know that she gets Transformers as much. She loved the Bumblebee movie.
Oh,
which
yeah.
I enjoyed too. That was good. But yeah, I remember in the one during the one, was it the second one where the Constructicons were in it?
Yes.
And in the movie, like during that scene, I go, "Oh no, Constructicons!" she always teases me about that. She's like, "You were like a little kid." I said, "Oh no." I'll show you one more thing because I know you'll appreciate it, and then we can get you off to your movie with your son. Let me see. Now I've got to find it though. I have a spinner rack here with just like old, like not ones that I care about as far as if they get damaged or whatever. And one of my students just gifted me, and here's the kicker: he didn't even know I like Transformers, but his family loves Transformers. That's the very first Marvel
that's pretty cool
issue they ever did of Transformers.
That is very cool.
It started as a limited series. So that's number 1 in the limited series. So I was like, "Did you know I like huge Transformers?" No, I didn't know that.
That's so awesome.
You couldn't have got me a better gift. Yeah, they gave that to me for my birthday, so that was really
very
cool.
That's very cool. Chad,
awesome,
you're back,
guys.
Yeah, sorry guys. I had
you're okay.
That was the car dealership finally calling to tell me.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
Tell me.
Come get the vehicle.
Yeah.
Holy crap. You got your vehicle in for servicing or repair?
Well, it's my girlfriend's car. So we're both have, I have a 2005 Jeep Wrangler that has 200,000 miles and about on its last leg.
That's good for a Jeep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, especially with Ohio winters, the body's starting to eat away.
I have a 2015 Challenger Scat Pack.
Oh, nice.
Challenger.
Yeah.
And that thing nearly right after the warranty expired,
of course,
as usual,
had to get a new engine. The check engine light came on. I kid you not, like not that many miles after the warranty was up, and I take it in, and I get the call like, yeah, I've got some bad news. Like your engine is messed up.
like great.
Apparently, I got a lemon.
Oh, yeah. Man.
So now I have a 2015 with a brand new engine in it though. So hopefully it's like the newer updated version of the
engine, sure.
More modern. Yeah. So hopefully it lasts another 50,000 or more.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so too for you.
But hey, Toyota's the way to go because my wife's always had Toyotas. Those things go forever. So we bought a Toyota 4Runner right before the pandemic hit, and those things just go and go and go. So mine's the impractical fun play, hot rod car, and then we have the then we have the practical vehicle that goes much better in the snow than my Challenger.
No, I'm sure
it does.
It did snow here very, very early for here. We normally don't get snow until like maybe January, February. But,
oh, really?
Yeah, we got like 4 inches of snow here at my house the other day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In Washington State, shuts everything down.
Like, that's it. We're done. We got snow.
2 inches of snow here, or even say snow in the forecast. People start driving very crazily, and
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Gurley. Why don't you do this? Tell everyone how and if you want, like give them any kind of socials, any kind of sponsors,
Okay.
anything you want to shout out. We always put everything in the show notes so people can click on it and get to things, anything you would want them to know, our listeners. So have at it, man.
I'd be remiss to not mention Show Your Roll again. The reason I ever sought out sponsorship with them is because I love the people behind the brand, and I believe in them and what they do. It's more like a family. They do so much positive stuff behind the scenes that they don't publicly let out, like very charitable things, helping families in need. They'd be embarrassed if I told you guys a lot of the stuff they did. So they're more than just about the brand and making money. They're just good people, which is why I'm so honored to have been sponsored by them for so long. So definitely check out Show You Roll, their sister brand, A&P. As far as me and my socials, I do have a podcast, which I'd love to have you guys on if you would ever want to do it.
For sure.
It's called the Spartan Underground. My nickname's 300 because of the beard. And one of my friends gave it to me. He said, "Oh, you look like Leonidas."
Leonidas, yeah.
So
it's a great nickname.
many years ago. Usually the beard's more, not on par with Chad, but it's usually down quite a bit more. But any social media outlet, James 300 Foster, so at James 300 Foster. Have a lot of free content on my YouTube as far as technique videos and things like that. Same with Instagram. Not on Twitter much. I don't really get on there. I have it just because I wanted to hear my name on there. But the podcast, it's on all the normal podcast places, Apple, Google, Spotify,
nice,
all that good stuff. So that pretty much covers it. I love interacting with people. I love it when people reach out. If there's any A5 Show Your Roll fans out there or A&P fans, I am trying to offload a bunch of my gis to thin my collection out. So please reach out.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to put that. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do. I've been doing these things called mystery boxes that have been real popular here lately. So what I do is for a certain cost, and I pick 2 of my gis and some of my apparel that I'm letting go as far as my Show Your Roll and A&P stuff. And people have been loving those. I've been mailing those out like crazy. So
that's a great idea.
I'm sure you have some unicorns in there.
Oh, I have. Yeah. So I have beyond unicorns because a lot of mine, I have literally the only A5 that was ever made.
Yeah.
And I have some prototypes and all sorts of crazy.
People will go crazy for those.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of people that have Mike. So this guy.
Oh, nice. Hey.
He's eating everything in my art room. That's how So they're still in that kitten stage. So now Loki is very aptly named. He's the god of mischief.
Yes. So you couldn't have named him any better if he's doing that.
He was over here chewing on some of my art paper that's on the floor. Yeah. My wife rescued 3 kittens from the barn where we keep our horse.
Oh, okay.
And they were supposed to be fostered and given to homes. We were able to foster out one of them, and then we got attached to the other 2. Ended up keeping them. So yeah,
that's okay. Fun. It happens.
That's partially why I had to reschedule.
Oh, okay.
You got to do the vet appointment,
the vet,
all these different things.
Yeah.
And, so it's been a whirlwind. But they bring a lot of joy too.
They do. For sure, they bring a lot of love and joy. I have 3 dogs, man. It's good. Chad's always like, you get 3 dogs. I have 3 dogs and 3 kids, so
it's a lot.
Yeah. So for my wife and I, the pets are kind of like our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the horse, and we have the now 5 cats, which is and all time. We've had 5 before. We were down to 3. 2 of our older ones had passed away years ago, and now we're back up to 5.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Cool.
Oh, thanks so much, man, James.
Yeah, thanks, James.
Greatly, man. If you reach out, if you need anything, and obviously, we'll do the same.
And I'll be reaching out to have you guys on my podcast as well.
Heck yeah.
Anybody, if you're ever in Washington State, just about 20 minutes south of Seattle is where my academy is. Just go to fosterbjj.com, send me an email, coordinate coming in. If you guys are ever here, I'd love to train with you. If I ever end up in Ohio, or if you ever want to bring me to your academy to teach a seminar, I do seminars all the time, all over the U.S. So
nice.
Would love to meet you guys in person at some point.
For sure. Yeah.
Very cool.
Catch a great
movie.
Movie.
A great upcoming holiday and everything.
Yeah,
and
you too,
my friend. Yeah, definitely.
Hope to chat soon.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
All right, my man. We'll talk to you later. Okay.
Thanks,
Take
man.
care.
All right, brother.
Yep.
We'll see you
later.
See ya
later.